Today we're going to go over the painting portion. I don't want anybody painting on their project till you've done the chapter unit, so don't start on that. But after you through the chapter unit, you'll be able to primer and paint your project. This particular project was one I had a few years ago, a student did, but I'm just going to use this for my demo. It already has a trim on. Your guys' trim won't be on. But I guess it allows me to go over a couple of things. You always want to primer your drywall first before you paint. And the reason for that, it puts a blocker on the drywall so your paint don't keep soaking into your drywall. Because what will happen, all the good stuff in your paint that makes it so you can wipe it down good, to wipe, you know, dirty fingerprints or whatever off your wall, all that stuff will soak in deep in your drywall, and then your paint won't wipe good. So you always want to primer your drywall. It hardens the board and it puts a stopping point for that paint where it can't keep soaking in. So they make all kinds of drywall primer. If you were painting something like this is with trim on it, there's a few different choices you have. Of course, you wouldn't want to just start rolling and have paint all over this too. You would have to cut around the trim. No different than up at the ceiling you would have to cut in. A good angled brush works good. I don't like to paint, so I usually have it all over everything where I'm not supposed to have it. But you would want to cut in here with a brush along your trim or along the ceiling so you're not getting paint from your roller on either one of them. You guys are not going to have to deal this with your project, but I just thought I'd explain that. Another option you have, you could use some masking tape and carefully tape everything off, so you could go along here and tape off that top point, and then you wouldn't have to be as careful. So that's another option. You can use, they make little plastic, you know, it's thinner than a drywall knife. Usually they have a little curve to them, and you can hold them up there as you brushed along. That works too, but you got to be careful not to get a bunch on it because it'll run around the back side of it, and then you have it on your trim. Frank, can you hand me a drywall blade? I've seen guys do this also, just any size, it doesn't really matter. Usually you'd use a bigger one, but the 6-inch you could set that there and paint along here and keep moving this along, but you got to be careful that paint don't run around or you still have it on your trim work. Now you do have boxes, electric's already in here. A lot of times when you're repainting stuff, I mean, you're not going to take all these plugs off. There's no need of it. You can paint around that. A lot of guys like to brush around those too, so you're getting up nice and close and making sure you're getting paint. In an inside corner, you would have to brush both sides of that corner because you can't rub this roller right up to an inside corner. If this was a corner here, if you'd be rubbing that other wall up, there wouldn't be any way to get it. So you got to roll up as close as you can to the corner without touching that other side, but you'd want to brush first. And usually your cut-in goes first. You cut in along your ceiling. If you got to cut along the base trim or around door trim, you do that first, and then you roll up to that stuff as close as you can get with your roller. In here, I do have these nice trays where we don't have to do as much cleanup. But one thing that you can do when you put your paint in a roller pan like this and you're going to paint the next day also, you don't have to clean everything up. Brushes do get cleaned up every day. But as far as your roller and the tray, if you use a plastic bag without ripping a hole in it, and you slip that paint in there and then you seal it up at this end, keeping this roller with paint in it, and you seal that up, this will be good the next day. Maybe even 2 or 3 days you could keep it good without having to clean your stuff up. But you cannot rip a hole in the bag. So we're going to have to be careful with that because I don't want to go through a ton of roller covers. There's no reason for it. We can keep using the same one. But you got to seal it up good. This is a water base. Usually interior stuff you use water base. Why would you want to use water based paint? Some of you have done the chapter. I know all of you aren't through it. But why would you want to use a water based paint over an oil based paint? Does anybody know? Or why would you want to use an oil based paint over a water based paint? Don't know? Anybody? Or if you think about water-based, it cleans up with soap and water. That's one reason. Cleanup is a lot easier. Where oil-based paint, you have to use a paint thinner or mineral spirits or some kind of chemical to clean your tools up. Or if you get it on anything you're not supposed to get it on, to clean it up. Where water-based is a lot easier to work with. The advantage of oil-based paint, and most people use that more so on exterior, it's more durable. It's a more durable paint. It holds up to getting banged around and stuff a little bit better. But it's usually used on exterior. Not that you can't buy latex for exterior, because they do make it. But most people like to use an oil base outside because it is more durable to the weather and that. So anyway, back to our painting. So I'm going to open this thing up. Now once this is stirred, we probably won't have to stir it up again. But when you first get paint, you have to stir it up. I mean, if you were going 2 years and you had this down in your basement where you kept it warm and it was still good, yeah, you would have to stir it up again. But I'm saying within a week or so, we're not going to have to re-stir this. Kind of like drywall mud. You don't have to re-stir it. So we're going to open this up so we can stir it. But after this, well, I guess we will to put our paint back if we put any paint back in there. But you shouldn't have to take this lid off. It has a pour spout here. So we should be able to pour right through here. But we are going to open this up and make sure it is stirred up good, which I'm sure it's not. So we do have a paint stirrer that fits on a drill, but you don't have to have that, and we're not going to use it in here because I don't want that stuff probably sprayed all over, but I have just a chunk of wood here that we can use. And Garrett, I'll get you to stir that up for me. It doesn't look too awful bad, but stir that up a little bit. Whenever you're using this stuff, you got to make sure you have a brush handy. Because you can't be dumping this paint and just letting it run down the side of the thing. You got to clean that mess up. So getting in the picture, Garrett, that's good.
How you doing?
And this was probably shook on a machine, and that's why it's mixed up pretty good. You don't feel anything. You want to feel in the bottom, making sure no different than stain. A finish, you want to make sure there's no clumps in the bottom because that's your pigments or your coloring for your paint, but that looks pretty good. But now this stick here is covered with paint. You don't just throw that off to the side. It's no different than your bucket. You want to clean that up the best you can. So we have a paintbrush here, and you're going to wipe that off the best you can. It's the same way when you pour out of this bucket. We're not just going to pour it and let that paint run all over. And this will be no different than, can I get somebody to grab me a newspaper maybe out there? Just want to get it off there the best you can. Like I said, this is water-based. This would rinse right off if you wanted to clean it. We're not going to get that picky with it. Just go ahead and set it right down there, and I'll. Now we know from cleaning our floor up, I did make some drips here. We're going to wipe that stuff up, right? Cleans up with soap and water. So we're going to make sure we clean our stuff up. Because we know how hard that scrapes off there, right? Oh, got it good. All over my glasses. Good thing I had my safety glasses on. It's all over my face. I can feel it. Yeah, I could have got paint in my eye right there.
Yeah,
see that?
Looking good.
So when you dump this, you can see that runs all over.
I always put my hand over the top of that when I'm pulling it because that happens every time you pull those things off.
I thought it, right. It's going to do that, and you'll see it's going to do it to you. But that's what this brush is for, to make sure you clean this mess up. I don't want that right now. Yeah, I don't care. That's all right. You can't be afraid to get dirty. All right, so it's not going to take you much paint to paint your project. So you don't have to fill the tray right up. So you got your paint. Usually on a new roller, and not everybody's going to get to experience this because the roller's going to be kind of broken, but they don't want to roll good at first. But you get it soaked in there pretty good. Of course, we do our cut in, right, around our box. And it's okay if you get your paint on this metal part, but you don't want to get it all over your outlet itself. And then you're going to cut in along here, getting as close as you can. Like I said, I usually paint or tape that off because I'm not real good at cut in. But remember, it's water based. If you do get it on there, you can get it off. Keep you a damp cloth. You can cut in along there. And you got to use the angle to help you. So we got that cut in along there. When you roll, and you can see what you got to watch out for. See this run right here that somebody got on this? If you get a run and you don't get rid of it, that's always going to be there. And it's just going to keep getting bigger, bigger, and bigger every time you put a coat of paint on. So I'm going to start painting here. You want to make sure you're covering everything. And you don't want to push on your roller where if you're having to push really hard on your roller to get it to leave paint, you don't have enough paint on your roller. But you want to come down here through here and get as close as you can to everything. Roller's a little bit big to get by there. Now you guys will not have that trim to go around, but you don't want to take your roller down and touch your floor. And you can see they did, and they got a deduction for that. You shouldn't be getting paint on your floor. There's no reason for it. So don't bring that down. What's that?
You don't even take it down that far.
No, because your trim's going to cover. So if you get within, here of the floor, normally what I do, I will run my roller this direction along the floor to get close without, like you said, it can stay up a little bit. And then the same way with the ceiling, I get up where my brush cut in as close as I can without touching the ceiling and then do the center. You guys are not having to deal with all that, but I wanted to explain it. So the painting process is the same way for the regular paint. But like I said, if you get a run and you don't get rid of it, the next time you paint, that bump gets bigger and bigger and bigger. This keeps growing. So you want to make sure if you got to run, you get rid of it. Okay.
Normally the problem you find with painting is either somebody uses too little paint or uses too much paint. Usually it's the latter. Usually everybody is either trying to put paint on their project is putting way too much paint on.
Right. You don't want it to the running point, but yet you don't want to have to be shoving in on that roller, squeezing it out of your roller. So anybody have any questions? Do you have anything to add with it at all that you can think of? Like I said, make sure we're cleaning up though. I don't want this stuff. You see how hard that stuff scrapes up. So you got to get it cleaned up after you're done.